Melanie King. Oh, actually, I hate to read this, but Melanie King is with the EPA Office of Air Quality Planning and Standards, and she will provide an overview of EPA's regulatory interpretation regarding Duke Energy's PowerShare mandatory 50 demand response program. The interpretation concurred that Duke program met the criteria in the RICE NESHAP. So you can read the rest of her bio. But I would like to emphasize our group's relationship with EPA and trying to better understand the EPA rule. And I think Melanie pointed out the RICE rule was promulgated in 2010. So there was a RICE work group in 2010. I played a role, although I was very low key in what I did. I think a byproduct of that was the regulation navigation tool in 2011. I think that was a good idea. And 2013, there was a Q&A document. I don't know if that's still available or not. And then Melanie spoke with our group in 2017. And then Melanie, Sarah Ayers, both with OAQPS, I believe, at the time in 2020, and Jim Plose with Alaska, which I don't even know if Jim's still with the SB program. He was talking about retiring. So we have a kind of a long-term relationship with Melanie and RICE, well, also known as 4Z or ZZZZ, and then not to be confused with 4I and 4J, the two NSPSs that also affect engines itself. Engines are very ubiquitous. It seems like wherever I've gone, someone has had some type of emergency engine, a hospital, a school, a nursing home, just a general run-of-the-mill office building. It seemed like when the rule came out, it seems like I was starting to notice these things more, these big rectangular boxes with the engine on top, the fuel below, and it's as though I didn't know that they even existed before the rule came out. So without further ado, and just to reiterate, any questions, please include it in the chat, and Melanie will get to them as she sees fit, or maybe at the end of her presentation. So take it away, Melanie.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate you guys having me today. So let me share my slides and just let me know if you can see them.
Yes, we're seeing them.
Okay. I only have a very few slides, so I'll probably just wait until the end for questions. So just some background on the request. We received the request, in mid-January of this year from Duke Energy, and it was related to whether their new PowerShare mandatory 50 demand response program met the criteria in the RICE NESHAP that identifies situations when emergency engines can operate for up to 50 hours per year in a financial arrangement. Sorry, I accidentally clicked the slide here. The request, so there is some very similar language in our NSPS regulations, the Quad I and Quad J that Mark referenced, but the request only asked us about the RICE NESHAP, so our response only spoke to the RICE NESHAP. And just a refresher on what those 5 criteria are. They are that the engine is dispatched by the local balancing authority or local transmission and distribution system operator. The dispatch is intended to mitigate local transmission and or distribution limitations, to avert voltage collapse or line overloads that could lead to the interruption of power supply in a local area or region. The dispatch needs to follow a specific like NERC or regional state or PUC protocol or, process guideline. The power that's generated by the engines can be provided only to the facility itself or to support the local transmission and distribution system. And then the owner operator has to identify and record who dispatched the engine and the specific guideline that was followed. And then there is, another related provision in the rule that says that they have to report this operation to EPA on an annual basis. So we reviewed the letter. Of course, there was a change in administration, and so once the new administration came in, the new leadership came in, we informed them about the letter and, the request and what, the parameters of the program and the parameters of the regulation. And just some of the key information in the Duke letter, they indicated that the program requires participants to reduce their demand at Duke's request, typically through operation of on-site generators, although I think, other measures can be taken, such as, turning off lights or things like that. Duke said that the program will be dispatched when forecasted grid reserves fall below Duke's thresholds for maintaining reliable service. And they specifically mentioned when there's an energy emergency alert level 1 and transition to a level 2 is imminent without further action. They said that the program would fall below other emergency demand response programs in their resource stack. So, it would not be the first program called, it would be the last program called. My understanding is they have other, PowerShare programs, maybe that, aren't limited to 50 hours. So this is kind of a subset of an existing demand response PowerShare program that they already had in place. They indicated that the program would prevent the need for a rotating load shed, which would create local disturbances that could result in use of all generators throughout the affected area. Some of the types of facilities that they said they were targeting were wastewater treatment, retail, data center, grocery, and hospital facilities. And they indicated that Duke serves as the balancing authority in North Carolina and South Carolina, which is an area that's not covered by a regional transmission organization or an independent system operator. So after, we reviewed the information provided, and we made a determination that their program did meet those 5 criteria in the RICE NESHAP. It felt the determination was that the language in the criteria is broad enough. The mitigating local transmission and distributions limitations to prevent voltage collapse and line overloads language is broad enough that it encompasses Duke's program. We also issued a fact sheet regarding the response, which discussed, a couple of the administration's priorities for, maintaining the reliability of the electric grid and also advancing the development of artificial intelligence, which, requires an adequate and affordable supply of electricity. And so this, program that Duke has was cited as an example of ways that utilities could, under the existing requirements of the regulation, could utilize backup generators to maintain the reliability of the electric grid. So the fact sheet kind of said, if there are other utility demand response programs that meet these criteria, then they could also be used. I do expect that is probably going to result in some other utilities, making similar requests for regulatory interpretations. So, we may issue other ones, as we get requests in that, respond to similar questions that the Duke letter asked. In terms of, other things that the administration might be doing to maintain the reliability of the electric grid, you may have seen there have already been some announcements and some proposals issued related to power generation, the power sector, such as the proposed repeal of the mercury and air toxics standard, the more stringent standards in the mercury and air toxics rule for filterable particulate matter and for mercury for lignite fired units, the proposed repeal of the carbon pollution standards. We have also been talking with some of the stakeholders around artificial intelligence and data centers to try to get some idea of, some of the barriers that they see, specifically from EPA air regulations to the development of, data centers and, having adequate power for data centers. And so we have been hearing some things related to, generators as part of those conversations. So there may be some upcoming actions that this administration decides to take to, address any barriers that might exist in the stationary engine regulations, regarding in particular, like the operation of the operation of backup generators to provide power to the grid. But, I don't think there's anything that I'm able to share, any specifics that I'm able to share publicly at this point. So that's all I had in terms of the slides. I'm happy to answer any questions. I don't think any have come in the chat.
Yeah, I don't see anything in the chat. But yeah, you shared more than what I thought. You mentioned you're having stakeholder meetings with data center operators regarding, I guess, the reliability to the electric grid and their access to power, which can be a challenge, especially depending on where they locate, if it's in a rural or urban area itself. I don't know if you can share any information about those interactions with the stakeholders.
Yeah, I mean, we tried to reach out to, not just the data center operators themselves, but also other stakeholders. So we talked to like the RTOs and ISOs. I think we talked to everyone except ISO New England, and they said they really didn't have any information that would be helpful for us. I mean, ISO New England, the other RTOs and ISOs were, very informative. We talked to engine manufacturers and turbine manufacturers. We talked to state air pollution control agencies through meetings hosted by NACA and APCA. We did talk to the data center, some of the, the companies that own and operate data centers. I feel like I'm forgetting. We did talk to like a couple of the trade groups for emission control, devices. So we tried to cover, a range of stakeholders. I mean, we heard, there are a lot of the things that we heard are like things that are not within our control. Like, we can't really do anything about the fact that there's a 2-year lead time to get a new engine, or there's maybe even a longer lead time to get a new turbine, or to get other electrical equipment, things like that. There were several like permitting things that have been raised. So we're working with our, our permitting folks to, see what, flexibilities can be provided there. And then, like I said, there are some issues related to the backup generators. And you may have already seen, for example, one of the things that I think has been an ongoing concern is with new Tier 4 generators, that they have this feature called an inducement, which basically causes the engine to shut down if you don't properly operate and maintain the emission control device for NOx. And EPA has already issued some new guidance on inducement. I think it was back in August that kind of extended the time that owner operators have before the engine shut down from like 4 to 5 hours to now 100 hours. And that's from like stationary and non-road. And then there were also some changes for one-road engines. So there's already some work ongoing, to respond to issues that we've been hearing. And I think there'll be some other work happening in the future. Tammy?
Yeah, Tammy, you can unmute yourself and ask your question. Well, while we're waiting on Tammy, Lucas mentioned that he only saw the title slide, and I wasn't really paying attention as far as whether the slides were advancing or not. You said that you didn't have very many slides. I wasn't paying.
If you want to email them out to the group.
Yeah, I can email the slides out. I don't think there were many. How many slides would you say there were?
It was only 4 counting the title slide, so only 3
okay.
substantive.
Yeah, I'll send that out. So Tammy, you can either post your question in the chat or you can unmute and ask Melanie directly. So Tammy is a member of my group, the Small Business Environmental Assistance Program that we call CTAP, or the Compliance and Technical Assistance Program. She works in a rural area of Indiana in the southwest part of the state. I think there may be some Amish, but it is a very rural area. So there are probably a fair number of businesses that do. Okay, well, she dropped her hand, so I don't know if she gave up with the question or not. So she probably deals with a fair number of small entities that are located remotely that might have engines that they use. So the problem, though, is being able to get out and find these places. And I think, at least in Indiana, we want to differentiate between, we want to differentiate it among whether it's considered portable on wheels or can be moved around, like in conjunction with some other piece of equipment like a grinder or a crusher, or whether it's truly emergency or it was claimed to be emergency, but then they operated beyond the 50 hours per year. And I imagine that's something that's beyond your control as well, is what states might require for permitting. You may say this is what we will allow based on 4Z and 4I and 4J, but whether a state might still require a permit based on that 500 hours per year potential to emit, that may be up to them. Although I suppose EPA could facilitate a meeting. You mentioned briefly about permitting flexibility. So I suppose they could engage the states on trying to work on permitting flexibility.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely was one of the comments that we heard from these stakeholder conversations was, well, and also I think maybe some found it challenging that, permitting is different from state to state, especially like minor source permitting. And let me say, I'm not a permit expert, so I'm just sort of parroting what I've heard and what I've learned from our permitting experts. But, where one state might require modeling or, something like that, other states might not. My understanding is that's just kind of the way the program is designed to work. So I'm not sure how much EPA, can direct permitting, especially for minor sources, but it definitely was something that came up over and over again. So I think, there are like, I think last week there was an announcement about, you know, a new letter related to permitting that I think was related to the determination of begin actual construction or something like that.
Oh, really?
Um,
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think the
So
NSPS has a definition of when construction takes place. Is that when that order is made for an engine?
that's the definition in the NSPS. This was like, I don't think this letter was specific to engines. I think it was some other more broader issue. So
Oh, okay. Bigger picture.
yes, and I can send the link for that.
Yeah, that'd be helpful. Now, my colleague Timmy indicated that her microphone was not working. She said one of the slides stated about a fact sheet. Could you share it with us? So maybe either share a link now. Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah,
that was very
the slides. There should be a link in the slides, but I'll put it in the chat as well.
okay. Thank you. I don't know if you're able to share the letter you hinted at or mentioned the extended time frame for the auto shutdown for Knox controls.
Oh yeah, that's posted on our website, so I can certainly send that.
Any other questions? Otherwise, this could be one of our very short meetings, although I guess that's not necessarily a bad thing. Although with that being said, now that I think about it, Melanie, do you see any future potential outreach involving engines where maybe the SB programs could play some role? It doesn't have to be necessarily a big role, but some role.
I don't think we have anything planned right now. You know, we're kind of limited into what we can do at the staff level.
We want to be a willing party. We want to be kind of like your second pair of hands, so to speak. So we are willing. Just a matter of when you call us up to help, or how you want us to help.
Yeah, I appreciate that. If, you know, like I said, if we do propose, changes to the regulations, getting the word out about that, you know, so that people can see the proposal and provide public comment would be certainly very helpful.
So no questions or comments from anyone else in this meeting? If not, I am tempted to just end this early. Again, thank you, Melanie, for agreeing to my email to you, which I thought was a bit of a shot in the dark on my part because I didn't know what you might be allowed to do. But it was something that Tony Pendola with North Carolina, unfortunately, he is not on, who brought up the Duke letter and then your response to it. And so it's really kind of thanks to Tony. And again, reaching out to you. It's helpful to have people from EPA talk about the various rules, NESHAPs and NSPSs, and their interpretations, and perhaps tools and methods that people can use to understand how those rules might apply, like the regulation navigation tool. So we appreciate that. You're the experts. We're the generalist. I tell people jack of all trades, master of none, whereas you, Melanie, are the expert in your field. And so you know the ins and outs, very deeply. You could probably quote verbatim many sections of 4Z, and I would be still searching for that section and trying to hunt and peck for it. So you're the expert, and we appreciate your time and sharing with us. So since there doesn't seem to be any more questions, I will say let's end it here.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thank
Yes.
you, Melanie. Thank you, Mark.